my PS5 is different than yours. So we all know at this point that the biggest issue facing the PS5 is that no one can find them. And there's a lot of factors playing into that, but obviously the biggest one at play is the fact that they can't get any of the pieces they need to actually build these things because of COVID. The interesting thing going on here is that Sony is trying to get around these supply chain issues by using whatever parts are available at the time that a PS5 is being built. The specific piece I'm talking about here is the fan, because based on which PS5 you get, and by the way, there's no reason to really pick which one you're getting. You're either gonna have a 17 bladed fan or a 23 bladed fan. Now, you're probably sitting there thinking, there's really no difference between these fans other than the blades, but there actually is. The 23 bladed fan is a lot quieter than the 17 blade one. If you want to know which PS5 you got, it's actually really easy to check. All you have to do is take off one of the side panels and then use your kindergarten math to just count the little blades around the fan that you can kind of see through the plastic there. And the reason people are scrutinizing this so hard is that whether you had a PS4, a PS4 Slim, or a PS4 Pro, they all had one thing in common, and that was that they're loud as I mean, for real, those things sounded like an aircraft carrier by the end of the generation. But if you had one for pretty much the entire, like 7 or 8 years that was an active console, you'll probably remember that when you took it out of the box and you were playing stuff like Killzone Shadowfall on it, the fan was relatively quiet. But then, as games started to get more advanced as the generation went on, the fans would have to boot up and spin a lot louder. They would also get dust caked in there. And by the time we got to the end, it was like, seriously, honestly, I just made this joke. It was like having an aircraft carrier under your TV. They're just like ridiculously loud. And to be fair, this isn't a problem unique to Sony. I had an Xbox One X too, and that thing got pretty loud by the end of the generation as well. Now, there's really nothing that definitively says this is going to happen with the PS5, but there is one feature baked into the console that's making people think it is going to happen, and that's that Sony can actually like go in with software and unlock the fans' speed. They can say, okay, games are getting a little more advanced now that the console's been out for a couple months. We're just gonna turn up the fan speed on that bad boy, and then suddenly you might have an aircraft carrier under your TV again. And it makes sense to keep the fan speed low right now when the console is new and you need everyone to be saying good things about it. If games don't need the fan to spin very fast to keep the console cool, well, why would you really have the fans turned up and give people something else to complain about? So right now, most of the games we're playing on our PS5s are PS4 games with patches, like Days Gone or Ghost of Tsushima. Those aren't taxing the console too hard, so the fan doesn't need to spin very fast. But as this year goes on, we're gonna have Returnal, which is a native PS5 game, and then we're gonna have the new Ratchet and Clank. And I think that's the one that's gonna make Sony turn on the fan speed going higher update or whatever the hell they gotta do over there, because that game's not gonna have any loading screens. You're gonna be jumping through portals that take you into completely different levels instantly, and I just can't conceptualize how awesome that's going to be to play, but I can conceptualize how hard that's gonna tax my PS5 and make the fan spin, which will then make it louder. So you can kind of see why people are putting 2 and 2 together here and saying, well, yeah, it's quiet right now, but as time goes on, I'm pretty sure this bad boy is gonna start, getting louder. And if you have the 17 bladed fan, if it collects dust, if it's spinning faster, that one's comparatively going to get louder faster than the 23 bladed fan. Like, that's the line of thinking that people are having. And like, I'm not a scientist, I didn't build this console, I don't know anything really about how fans work, but it makes sense to me. Like, small fans spin faster to cool the same as big fan. Thinking a little bit bigger, this really plays into a core issue with the PS5 itself. Like, Sony did a really good job making a really cool console that, while a little big, looks pretty dope underneath my TV. The problem is, it feels like we're beta testing this console for the PS5 Slim users who are gonna get that in a couple of years. Like, we're working out the kinks. They're gonna go like, ah man, people are complaining that this fan's too loud, or people are complaining that this console's a little too big. So the people who are getting the real benefits out of all this stuff are the people who are buying the Slim. Like, us early adopters are once again being punished for spending money on something that doesn't actually have any games. And I think we're the suckers here. I'm joking around, but there are some actual problems we're having to deal with. We've got stick drift, we've got the memory on the console being comparatively tiny to its competition, and then you can't even put that extra hard drive in there at this point because Sony has that feature locked down for some reason. Like they're just saying in the software, it doesn't matter if you go out and buy the correct SSD to expand the storage of your PS5. If you go put that bad boy in there right now, it's not gonna do anything just because Sony says so. And now we've got to worry about the fans getting louder, and it's kind of annoying. Don't get me wrong, the games are really good for sure. Like even playing PS4 games on my PS5 makes them a lot better and a lot more fun. But this is pretty much the third generation in a row where Sony has been able to bank on these good games to kind of push these weird little hardware limitations under the rug. And it's not like pissing me off, it's just getting annoying. I hate that that's just like a symptom of them having really good games that everyone wants to play. But just thinking about it when I was writing this video on if this is actually going to affect how long the PS5 is going to last, I don't really think it's going to, based on no actual knowledge, because if they unlock the ability for the fan to spin faster, that's to keep the console as cool as the fan was before the ability to spin faster was unlocked. So theoretically, like if the console is staying as cool as it was before because the fan is spinning faster, that means your PS5 is working as intended. It's not like getting hotter and it's not gonna just fry itself because it can't spin the fan fast enough, you know? Like they underclock the fan on purpose. So I think that's a good thing. And another silver lining here is, just like we talked about in the stick drift video, which you should definitely check out if you haven't, Sony is known for making very subtle hardware changes behind the scenes when there's these little problems and just not saying anything about it. One thing they've done before is that when the DualShock 4 came out with the PS4, like the rubber on the sticks would come off over time as you were playing it. Within like the first couple weeks of the PS4 being out, like the sticks rubber would come off, and then suddenly a couple of years or maybe even months down the line, that stopped happening. Sony never even acknowledged that it was a problem, and then they fixed it behind the scenes because that's just the easiest way to do things. So maybe over time we'll start to see a PS5 that has the same fan because the same fan that has 23 blades is more available, you know? It's not something we're ever gonna hear about, I don't think. And speaking of PS4, hardware variations like this are actually very common. We were talking about it before we shot the video, and I guess the PS4 Pro, when it came out, it had the PC style like 3-pronged power slot. I don't actually remember what that's called. But then over time, if you bought like a PS4 Pro last year, you'd probably have a figure 8 cable, which is more streamlined and much smaller. I didn't know that, which is crazy because again, Sony just does this stuff without saying based on what's available at the time. Another weird thing that's also happening with the PS5 is that when this thing came out and people were ordering them through Sony Direct or PlayStation Direct or whatever the website was called, they would go and pay $400 for a digital edition. The digital edition would show up, it would be the right box, which is the black one, but then they'd open it up and it would be the disc drive one. They'd have the $500 console and they would say like, yeah, I got the wrong console, and Sony was like, no, it's fine. So they were like fulfilling orders for digital consoles with the ones that they had on hand. Like that's how bad Sony wants to get these things in your hands, which again, that makes sense why they're using 2 different fans in this thing. And then when you look at the Nintendo Switch, they stealth dropped a brand new Switch in 2019 that not only had better battery life because of the new CPU that they were using, it also had a better LCD screen that was brighter and color corrected better. And they didn't say anything. The only way you could tell you were getting a new Switch is if you had the special red boxed one. And it was just very bizarre that they didn't call it like a new Switch or anything. They just put out this brand new model and didn't really say anything. I guess kind of hoped people wouldn't notice. So yeah, there is precedent for this kind of stuff. And then another issue, just thinking about this, that Nintendo did silently fix is that, I don't know if you guys remember this, when the Switch came out, when you put it in the dock, there was a notorious problem with the bottom left corner of your screen being scratched. But newer docks don't do that anymore. So yeah, at the end of the day, there's tons of weird little hardware variations, but in this console generation, the consoles are more advanced. They gotta do crazy things to keep them cool, like make them massive. And then on top of all of that, they gotta deal with COVID and supply chain issues, and everything's a lot harder. So you know what? It's kind of a miracle that we even got these consoles to begin with. And I think we're all just gonna be fine. But if you're one of those people who can't find a PS5, once again, you're gonna be rewarded for waiting down the line. And I don't know if that's good or bad. It's just like a fact. Anyway guys, that's all I have for you today on the PS5. If you want to stay PS ready, make sure you're subscribed and have your notifications set to all. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.